Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show some Ziva cloth stuff. So most of you are probably aware that we solve a fascia on top of the animated muscles and bones, and what that allows for is kind of a nice sliding effect to happen. When the character's in motion, you want to be able to see those forms slide in the valleys between the muscles and things come and go as the character's moving around. So I'm just going to show quickly how you can use the Ziva cloth solver to help you model your initial fascia state. So in this scene, I've got this object here. This is the skin mesh minus the hands and feet, basically. So hide that for a second. And I've also got the muscles and bones in here, and these aren't animated, they're just static. So I'm just going to convert all these objects to Ziva bone objects. And then I'm going to convert the fascia to a cloth object. Cool. So a really cool feature that came into Ziva not so long ago was the ability to be able to shrink down the cloth, and that feature is called rest scale. So just like tissues, cloth have a Z material node, and one of the attributes here is rest scale. And so if I change this to 0.8, for instance, what's going to happen is that all the triangle lengths are going to shrink down to basically be 80% of what they were at rest. And so if I solve one frame now, you're going to see it jump over one frame. And okay, the other thing I need to do is turn on collisions, because we're going to use collisions basically to push the cloth back out. So turn collision detection on, and then I'll solve that frame again. And so you'll notice that we got the collision drawing proxy pairs, but a lot of the collisions are getting missed. And that's because the jump was too intense over the very first frame. And so what we want to do is basically ramp on that effect over time. So if we look on the Z cloth node, so attributes on Z material nodes are not keyable. So we've had to put an envelope value on the Z cloth node. So these two attributes here multiply together to give the final effect. So what I'll do is key on this effect here. Key selected. And then maybe over 10 frames, I'll make it come in. And because pressure is 0 at the moment, it's not going to do anything. We'll talk about pressure in a minute. But the other thing I'm going to do is add I'm going to turn off gravity, and I'm going to add another sub-step here. So now, play this back. I'm going to also add a cache. Okay. And hopefully you'll see now that the forms come in as the cloth shrinks. Isolate this now, you see that happening. So you would notice that the whole thing is shrinking, which is not ideal. So what you'd need to do is select these border edges and then make an attachment here. Yeah. And then simulate again. And I won't do everything here, but it's just to give you an idea of how you can use the solver to get your initial start pose for the fascia. And then I'll talk about how the fascia is actually used, how we're thinking about fascia and fat and skin going forward. Cool. So you can see now that the fascia is staying put in the arms and the wrists, and it's sliding down. So the thing you'll notice as well is that we're kind of losing the valleys. We're not getting the valleys between the muscle objects. And that's because that's because with rest scale, you're effectively getting a hull here. So if I can just draw it quickly. So if this is say the cross section of the forearm, when you shrink down the fascia, you effectively get this. And so what we have as well is a pressure attribute, so you can put a force along the normal of the cloth on all the vertices. So what's going to happen is it's going to push this back in like that. So if I go back to the Z material node on the cloth and change pressure to say 100, hopefully that won't be too much. I think that's about right. Might be a bit harsh. Yeah, that's not very good. Maybe 50, and I'll give it another sub-step. Another attribute you can change as well is you'll see that the proxy pairs are currently only, the collision proxy pairs are only present where there are vertices. So we actually have another attribute on the solver called collision point spacing. And if you make this a smaller number, like 0.08, for instance, now what Ziva is going to try and do is populate your mesh with collision proxy pairs every 0.08 units squared. So I clear the cache now. Hopefully you'll see now if I solve a couple of frames. And what's going to happen is that's going to give Ziva a bit more information to work with when it comes to solving fascia collisions, or solving any collisions actually. It's not quite enough. To make that, forgot a 0. And so the idea is that you can use this to model your initial fascia pose, and then you would duplicate off the mesh, clean it up a bit, and then work with that. So yeah, it's just a helpful tool it's just a cool idea as well to help you do that work.
Just to cut in quickly here, how are we looking on time? I see some people are joining the room surprisingly right now, but then some people are leaving.
Do you mean from my perspective?
Yes.
Well, I did want to talk about skin quickly, and then I had the comments from people when they signed up to the webinar that I was going to go through. So it's quite a bit of content. I don't know, maybe we could just wrap up with the skin, or
yeah, let's do that, and then we can answer the questions that kind of came in as you were doing the demo just now as well.
Okay, cool.
But at this time, I think give everybody a little boost of energy if you were been sitting for a while. Just to let everybody know, the character that Andy is currently doing the demo on, his name is Mr. Ink. And he's actually going to be a free asset that we give to everybody in attendance and really anyone who wants it. It'll be a great way to follow along during our tutorials and also during these webinar sessions. So we will add him to the free store soon, and you will all be able to grab a Mr. Ink of your own.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, continue, Andy.
Okay, thanks. So I'll just quickly talk about the skin. So you see the basic thing that the model that we're working towards with skin is that we want to concatenate, if you like, the fascia and the skin pass into one. So the idea is now, if I open up the skin file, sorry, I'm supposed to have this open already. Save. You'll see that I have the fascia mesh in there. And so the fascia and the fat in this character are getting solved at the same time. So the cool thing is with this is that I've actually switched collisions off on the fascia, but the fat is coupled to it. So this is kind of the best of both worlds. So you get, you can still use the rest scale feature of fascia here. So you can see that's 0.8 and there's a pressure of 500. So you still get that functionality, but you're doing your collision work at the tissue level. And so the fat and the fat and the fascia work in tandem to give you the final result. And so in this example, these two passes, if you like, are actually solved in the same file. And yeah, I've just separated it out so you can see what that inner surface is doing. But the cool thing about that as well is that it makes the collisions more stable, because at the moment, so you have this situation, right, where your fascia doesn't have any depth to it, it's just a surface. But if you solve the fat at the same time, like this, then you get what we call a bidirectional collision test. So you can test the points from this volume inside that and from this inside that. So there's two directions, if you like, because there's more information to resolve the collisions correctly. And that means you can drop the number of substeps required as well. So you could get away with less substeps through the skin. And then for extra points, if you're getting high frequency, if you're interested in high frequency wrinkling on the character like we were doing with the lion, you would then solve, if I get back to the skin, you would have a third layer, I've got this here, outer surface. You would then convert this outer surface to a cloth as well, and then couple that to the fat. And then that way you can kind of make you wouldn't have rest scale or anything on the outer cloth, and you'd kind of have a loose-ish attachment to the fat, and then that way you can get what you get in nature, which is a stiff sort of epidermis and a soft fat underneath, and that way you get really natural looking wrinkle effects. And that's what we're doing on the lion as well, and what some people have done on the on the community. So it's a really powerful feature, and it's probably this way of combining all these passes in one is what we're looking at moving forward.